Morning peeps, good morning everyone, how's everyone doing? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, like, share, subscribe. Alright, let's talk Terence Crawford. I think by now we've all moved on from the Canelo fight. That fight ain't happening, or at least ain't happening next. I still think there are legs in that fight, by the way. I think once Canelo gets past Berlanga and they're looking for that opponent for May, I think Crawford's name will be brought up again. I don't think it's dead in the water. I think the teams will go to the table. I think Turkey will go to the table with Canelo's team, and I think it will be discussed. But I don't think it will be Crawford's next fight. So let's look at realistic opponents for Terence Crawford's next fight. I think I read somewhere that Turkey wants him to fight again in February. So let's discuss who he could fight in February. Very quickly, before we look at, and I've got them written down, by the way, so I don't forget anyone. Before we look at the opponents, is Terence Crawford pound for pound king? I was having a debate with someone about this. I said Alexander Usyk is. They said Terence Crawford. Someone said Inoue. Look, I'm not upset with either of those guys, by the way. It's almost the first time where I would accept 1A, 1B, 1C, right? And no one's number 2. I think it's that close. All three of those guys are double undisputed, which is incredible. All three of those guys are just geniuses in the ring. But I don't know. When I think of the title pound for pound, and I see how much poundage, if you like, Alexander Usyk gives away in the ring and still makes up for it in skill. I mean, I can't remember what Fury weighed, but I think Alexander Usyk weighed 222 pounds for his fight against Tyson Fury. And I think he would have been given away, I'm going to guess and say Fury was 270, 280. He's given away 50, 60 pounds. And he's making up for that in skill. So that's why he's my pound for pound number 1. But again, no argument if your pound for pound number 1 is Terence Crawford or Inoue. But it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think. Put your pound for pound number 1, please, in the comment section. All right, let's look at potential next opponents for Terence Crawford. The first name I've got on the list, and this is in no particular order, by the way. This isn't a case of this is the person I want him to fight first. I just wrote these down. Jaron Ennis, the current IBF welterweight champion. There seems to be heat between Crawford and Jaron Ennis. Jaron Ennis was there on the weekend. At the weigh-in, Crawford walked past him and said something. I think he said something along the lines of, I thought you wouldn't be here, or I thought you wasn't going to watch, or something anyway. But there seems to be this question of, was there a fight planned in the past? Did someone duck the fight? Is Jaron Ennis ready for the step up? I think he probably is. And I think the problem for Ennis as well, and the problem Eddie Hearn's going to have, is yes, you can become unified and undisputed champ at welterweight, but there aren't that many good fights. I mean, let's be realistic. There aren't, right? I mean, Barrios, Stanionis, these aren't exciting fights. These aren't pay-per-view fights. These aren't fights that draw in the casuals, really. I know Jaron Ennis had a really good outing in Philly last time out, but you've got to move on from that. So I think Jaron Ennis would be willing to step up to 154 pounds. There's obviously this extra factor of Eddie Hearn as Jaron Ennis' promoter. Eddie and Crawford seem to be having this. It seemed to be friendly at first, but if you go on their Instagram post of recent, it seems to have kind of taken a turn for the bad. So look, again, that helps in the promotion of a fight. So there's Jaron Ennis. There's Sebastian Fundora. Now, Sebastian Fundora was scheduled to fight Errol Spence. Errol Spence pulled out of that fight. I don't know what injury it was, but he pulled out of that fight. Now, if Crawford is trying to become undisputed and, I mean, be in the discussion for all-time great, like legit all-time great discussion, some might say he's already in there. I don't think he is. I think he's just on the outside of it. But, I mean, if you can become undisputed in 3 weight classes, I mean, you're in the discussion, right? Sebastian Fundora's got 2 belts. He's got the WBC and the WBO. Again, it's a big fight. Don't get me wrong. It's a big fight, right? It's a unification fight. It's a big fight. But it isn't a fight that I think the casuals are going to go mad at. It just isn't. I mean, look, Sebastian Fundora is a tough outing for anyone. I think we saw that, right? Tim Tszyu saw that. He stepped up late notice and put a beating on Tim Tszyu. He's a tough ass, by the way, just because of how lengthy he is and rangy. Like, Crawford's always got the reach on people. You go and look at his stats. He's always got the reach. He will not have the reach against Fundora. But I think it's an exciting fight. Again, if Crawford is trying to become undisputed, you can collect a couple more belts here. So that's an option. The one that I think will happen is Virgil Ortiz. And I will say this now. Hopefully you guys are watching this today before Virgil Ortiz fights on the weekend. Buashuk, who he's fighting, Serhii Buashuk, is a tough fight. Really is. If I wake up Sunday morning and I hear that Virgil Ortiz has lost, I'll be a bit surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked. I think this is a really, really tough fight. The thing about Virgil Ortiz is interesting. All the other guys on this list have been world champions or are world champions. Virgil Ortiz doesn't tick any of those boxes. I mean, I think we all know the talent's there, but wasn't a world champion at 147. Didn't really fight the top guys at 147. Not the top guys, and that's always very difficult to do because at his time of being in the division, there was only really two top guys, Crawford and Spence. And now has jumped to 154. Hasn't been super active recently. I can understand why Turkey wants to make it. It's an easy fight to make. Obviously, Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya, there's a working relationship there now. I think you bring out the Mexican crowd as well, so you're going to sell out the arena or stadium, wherever you are. It's going to do good numbers. Virgil Ortiz has got a good following. But for Crawford's legacy, what does it do? And surely that's what it is now for Crawford. Or is it not? Is it just chasing money? Maybe it is just filling your bank account. I don't know. But Virgil Ortiz is an interesting one. Jermell Charlo. There's been a lot of whispers recently that Jermell Charlo is going to come back. We haven't seen Jermell Charlo fight for nearly a year. That's when he obviously stepped up to fight Canelo. Very, very disappointed with that performance. Not just the performance, but everything. This is your opportunity to be on the world stage. Like, he's been there before, but I'm talking world stage. And I thought just the press conferences were a bit dull. It almost seemed as though everything just got to him. Like the idea of fighting Canelo, someone that you've been asking to fight for a couple of years, just the idea of Canelo in front of you just got to him and he froze. The problem for Jermell Charlo, and by the way, this would have been my pick, by the way, Jermell Charlo, if he was active. Problem for Jermell Charlo is that he hasn't fought 154 pounds for over 2 years. His last fight was May 2022, 154 pounds. He ain't making 154. I mean, this guy's gone up to 168. I don't even want to think of what Jermell Charlo is walking around at now. But Jermell Charlo, if he does come back, will come back 160, the lowest, maybe even higher. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays at 168. Like, physically, he actually looked okay for 168. He wasn't flabby or anything, right? So he looked okay. Errol Spence. Now, the one thing people said in the aftermath of Crawford putting that beating on Errol Spence was that, okay, let's see this fight 154 pounds. It's the one thing I heard constantly after. I think a lot of people took credit away from Crawford and said, okay, look, Errol's obviously dying at the weight class. Wait till you see Errol at 154 pounds. I have no idea what's going on with Errol right now. Like, I would have wanted to see that rematch immediately at 154, just so you can silence all those doubters that used weight as an excuse as to why Crawford won, rather than just gave Crawford full 100% credit. Like, Crawford that night was special. Like, it was probably the best performance I've seen in a so-called 50-50 match between two killers. Both of them are killers. And Crawford was just exceptional. But I have no idea what's going on with Errol. Obviously, look, he's no longer with his long-time trainer. I don't know what's going on. Again, he was supposed to fight Sebastian Fundora. That fight has been put on ice. Fundora came out and said, okay, no, we have a new date, but there is no new date. No new date's been announced. So I don't know what's going on with Errol. And then there's Tim Tszyu. Now, Tim Tszyu fights Mata Zaliev for the IBF title. It's a vacant title. Tim Tszyu was on a bit of a run until he ran into Sebastian Fundora. So much so, a lot of people were saying Tim Tszyu was the number one 154 pounder. Again, if Crawford wants to become undisputed or become unified, then I guess you fight the winner of that. And I think the winner will be Tim Tszyu. So look, there are options. Now, looking at those options, there's legacy option, then there's money option. They're two different things here. Legacy option probably is Sebastian Fundora because, again, you're then one belt away from becoming undisputed. Money option, I think, would be Virgil or Jaron Ennis. I think Jaron Ennis would sell that fight very well. He won't back down for Crawford. It will bring a different side of Crawford out. Like, when I was doing like the face-offs and all the interviews with Crawford, it was all very nice. It was all very fun, and you know, Majimov was giving him so many compliments. I love you, I was a big fan of you, all that stuff, which I get it, but it wasn't selling the fight. Jaron Ennis ain't doing any of that shit. So I think Crawford will then come out, and there is a nasty side to Crawford that we don't really see. I think Jaron Ennis will bring out that nasty side, and I think this fight would really pop off. I think it would be fantastic. I think everything in the build-up would be really, really big. And again, you add the Eddie Hearn factor into it as well. Eddie Hearn will sell that motherfucker, right? I think you guys know that. Virgil Ortiz brings a completely different market. It does. A completely different market. You're talking about the Mexican American market, and Virgil Ortiz brings that out. So you have and look, there are fight fans. They're just people that like watching fights. But then there is fight fans that will support a black fighter. I've seen it in America. And fight fans that will support a Mexican fight. All these fight fans now will turn up, and it will be sensational. So those two are the big money fights. And the other ones, Jermell Charlo, forget about it. Errol Spence, forget about it. And I don't think it's going to be Tim Tszyu. If I had to put gun to the head, who is he going to fight? I think it's going to be Virgil Ortiz. I don't think he will fight Jaron Ennis. There's a part of me, and I hate this side of boxing, but there's a part of me that, we know when a fighter talks smack to another fighter, especially if you're let's just say B-side, A-side. If you're the B-side fighter and you're talking smack to the A-side fighter, there's some A-side fighters that are thinking, I ain't giving this motherfucker a payday. There's that attitude, and I sometimes feel like maybe Crawford has that with Ennis, like, I ain't giving you a payday. Crawford ain't scared of Ennis, by the way. I'm not having that bullshit. Like, stop now. He isn't scared of him. But there is a part of me that thinks Crawford will be like, I ain't giving you that. Like, Crawford will believe I've had to work, and work, it's true, for this. Like, this opportunity was not given to me. Like, you know, I was watching all these guys making money. I was watching it from afar, right? Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Errol, Sean, all fighting each other and making money. I'm out here on the outside, ain't getting shit. And if you're Jaron, and he's probably thinking, sorry, Jaron, you're going to have to work a little bit like I did. So I think he isn't going to give it to Jaron Ennis. So I think it's going to be Virgil Ortiz. And it's a strange one because, again, Virgil Ortiz brings a lot in terms of hype and fan base, doesn't bring a lot in terms of resume to this table. Again, hasn't been a champion at 147, isn't a champion at 154 pounds. He's fought at the weekend, for some reasons, for the WBC interim belt. I guess that's because Fundora's not fighting right now. But yeah, look, those are the options. Who would you like to see him fight? Let me know. I don't think there's anything to talk about as much. This is interesting. I didn't even know this fight was going on. It's definitely make or break for me. Jarrett Hurt recognizes the stakes of Rosario's showdown. Wow. I mean, remember when those two guys were top dog? Well, Hurd was top dog at 154 pounds, and Rosario won a belt 154 pounds as well before getting beat by Charlo. If I remember, Charlo stopped him with a jab to the body, if I remember that rightly. Jarrett Hurt, though, was just so much bigger than everyone and was destroying folks. Remember that? Remember when he beat up Lara? Like, it was quite a bit of a brutal beating. I think he's only won, I'm going to say, 2 fights out of his last 6. I think 2. So, yeah, he definitely needs a win. So does Rosario. I don't know what weight that's at. I'll be shocked if that fight's at 154 pounds. Anything else? I mean, little bits and bobs, but we will do a proper video tomorrow catching up on all the latest news. Guys, girls, peace.